In 1989, a man named Viktor Sorokin sat down in a grey archive room in what was now called St. Petersburg. He was 74 years old. He had asked for his file. The clerk brought it without expression. 340 pages, bound in grey cardboard, stamped in red. Viktor opened it. He read slowly. Page 1, page 2, page 3. On page 7, he stopped. It was a letter, 3 pages long, written in handwriting he had known for 40 years. It described a man, his habits, his doubts, the books he read in secret, the radio station he listened to at night, with the volume turned all the way down. The letter ended with a name and an address, then a signature. Viktor sat in that grey room for a very long time. Then, he closed the file. He took the bus home. He made tea. Nadia was in the kitchen when he arrived. She looked at his face, and she knew immediately where he had been. She said nothing. He sat down across from her, and they had dinner. That letter had been written 37 years earlier, in February 1952, by his wife, addressed to the secret police, about him. And here is the thing that will stay with you long after this video ends. Viktor had known about that letter since the day she wrote it. This is the story of Viktor and Nadia Sorokin, and it is the most difficult love story I've ever told. Leningrad, 1946. 1 year after the war, Viktor Sorokin came back from the front in the summer of 1946. 31 years old, he had fought at Stalingrad. He had seen things that words do not cover. He came back to a city that was still counting its dead. Leningrad had lost nearly 1 million people during the siege. Almost every family had an empty chair at the table. Viktor had 2, his brother, his father. He found work at the Kirov factory, engine parts, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. He found Nadia at a factory dance in October. She was 24, dark eyes, serious face, and she laughed at exactly the wrong moments, during long silences, during formal speeches, during the moments when everyone else was performing the correct emotion. Viktor fell in love with that laugh. They married in the spring of 1947. For 3 years, life were what life was in Leningrad after the war. Small, careful, grateful. They shared a communal apartment with 4 other families. 1 kitchen, 1 bathroom. Walls thin as paper. Viktor read books he was not supposed to read. Not dangerous books, not political books, just books. Philosophy, literature. A German grammar textbook he found in the ruins of a library. He was curious, the way some men are religious. Quietly, privately, without needing anyone else to understand. At night, sometimes, he turned on a radio, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, he found a frequency that was not Soviet, Voice of America, BBC Russian service. He never told Nadia what he heard, but she heard him, listening. And in their communal apartment, with 4 other families on the other side of the wall, Nadia became afraid. But here is what nobody tells you about what happened next. Viktor did not stay silent because he was afraid. He stayed silent because he had already made his decision. 37 days before she mailed that letter, Viktor Sorokin had already decided what he was going to do. And the reason why is the part of this story that I have not been able to stop thinking about since I first heard it. Fear in the Soviet Union was not simple. It was not the fear of one thing. It was the fear of everything, all at once, always. In 1952, the Soviet Union had approximately one informant for every 8 citizens. Not secret police, not soldiers, ordinary people, your neighbor, your colleague, your closest friend. The system did not ask if you wanted to participate. It asked who you would report. Nadia had seen what this looked like up close. In 1951, a man in their building was taken. Viktor had spoken to him once, in the stairwell, about the weather, about the price of bread. That night, Nadia lay awake and listened to Viktor breathe. And she made a calculation, not a calculation of love, a calculation of survival. If someone was going to report Viktor, better that it be her. Better that she control the words. Better that she choose the framing. Not a dangerous man, a confused one, a good worker, a veteran. She believed she was protecting him. She told herself this every night as she wrote. She spent 3 weeks on that letter, 3 weeks choosing every word, 3 weeks believing that love could be an act of betrayal and still be love. On a Tuesday morning, she walked to the post office. She mailed the letter, then she went to work. What she did not know was that Viktor had found the first draft. Three weeks earlier, in the drawer of her desk. He'd read it in the kitchen at 5 in the morning, while she slept. He read it once. He read it twice. Then, he folded it carefully, placed it back exactly as he had found it, made himself a cup of tea. He went to work. He came home. He sat across from her at dinner and asked about her day. And he said, "Nothing. I want you to sit with that for a moment." He knew. He knew what was coming. He knew she had written it. He knew she had sent it. And every morning for 3 weeks, he kissed her goodbye and went to work. The secret police came on a Thursday morning, 2 men in gray coats, polite, almost apologetic. They asked Viktor to come with them for a conversation. He put on his coat. He kissed Nadia on the cheek. He was gone for 11 days. On the 12th day, Viktor came home. He was thinner. He walked differently, carefully, like a man testing ice. He sat down at the kitchen table. Nadia made tea. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Viktor said, "I read it. Before you sent it. I read the first draft." Nadia did not move. "I want you to know," he said, "that I understood why you did it. I want you to know that I would have done the same." He picked up his tea. "And I want you to know that I'm not going to leave." Nadia began to cry. She cried for a long time. Viktor sat across from her and waited. He did not touch her. He did not speak. He simply waited. Because in the Soviet Union, that was sometimes the deepest form of love. To wait for someone who had already broken you. To stay at the table, to pour the tea. To give them the time they needed. To find their way back to themselves. But that kitchen was not the end of their story. It was the beginning of the most unusual chapter. What Viktor and Nadia did over the next 31 years, how they lived, what they said, and what they chose never to say, is the part that will change how you think about love. Not temporarily, permanently. Viktor and Nadia Sorokin lived together for another 31 years. They never spoke of the letter again. Not once. This is the part that Western audiences find most difficult to understand. In Western culture, healing requires confrontation, apology, resolution, forgiveness as a spoken, active act. But Viktor and Nadia were Soviet people. They had grown up in a world where words were dangerous, where silence was not the absence of communication. It was the fullest expression of it. Their silence about the letter was not denial. It was a contract, an unspoken agreement between two people who understood each other more completely than most people ever will, and chose to continue anyway. The Soviet system created people who could hold impossible things at the same time. Love and betrayal, trust and suspicion, loyalty to a person, and loyalty to a system that demanded you choose between them. Viktor and Nadia never resolved this contradiction. They lived inside it for 31 years. And here is the question I keep coming back to. Is that weakness? Or is that the most profound form of love that exists? Not the love of resolution. Not the love that requires the other person to be perfect, or honest, or safe. But the love of continuation. The love that looks across a kitchen table at someone who's already broken you and says, I know what you did. I know why you did it. And I am still here. And then, 37 years after that Tuesday morning at the post office on Nevsky Prospect, something happened that neither of them had planned for. In 1989, Viktor closed that gray file in that gray archive room. He took the bus home. He made tea. Nadia was in the kitchen. She looked at his face. She knew. And they had dinner. I think about that dinner more than anything else in this story. Two people, a kitchen table, tea going cold, 37 years of silence, sitting between them like a third person at the table. And both of them choosing, one more time, to stay. What would you have done? If you had found that letter, would you have stayed? And if you had written it, could you have sat across that table every night for 31 more years? There is no right answer. That is the point. Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know what you think. If this story stayed with you, you already know what to do. Every week, there is a new story, a new person, a new impossible choice made inside a world most people never knew existed. Subscribe, not because I'm asking you to, but because somewhere out there is a story that was made for you specifically, and I do not want you to miss it. An empire kept its secrets for 70 years. I am not letting it keep them any longer. I am the storyteller, and this is the Soviet Noir.